So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this very, very warm session of the Hearth Within, where we have five Red River poets who are presenting their latest collections. And what better than to have five women surrounding the hearth and to talk about their latest creations, to read from their latest books, and to welcome these wonderful books into the world. Red River is known for being a very, very aesthetic publisher, and the kind of attention to detail that marks a Red River book probably surpasses any other publication. So we are very, very grateful that Dibyajyoti Sharma, the head and heart behind Red River, is also with us. So welcome, Dibyajyoti, and thank you for these wonderful books. My own book happens to be here, but before my own book and after my own book, I'll always remain a Red River fan because of the exquisite details that are built into every page. So thank you very much. Welcome to each one of you who is here today, and we look to a fruitful discussion. So to begin with, these are five books, all of which are coincidentally or they happen to be women, and they happen to be talking about things that are very close to their hearts. So these are women from different locations. If you look at the intersectionality of this group, they are women from different locations, engaged in different professions. They are writing from different geographical bodies, from different physical bodies, and from different psychological bodies. And the way that these poems tumble into one another, the way that these poems very evocatively mark the boundaries and the possibilities of their lives is something to consider. So I think I'll begin the discussion by inviting Tansy to talk about her new book, this very special book with this very special cover, where you find that the Buddha reigns not only over the cover, but also over the, it's a motif. The Buddha runs as a motif throughout the book, and it stands, if you do not look at the Buddha as a human, if you look at the Buddha just as a symbol, it stands for so many things within the book's canvas. So with Earth as my witness, Tansy Troy's latest creation is an ecological collection. It is also a very deeply humanist collection. I invite Tansy to talk about with Earth as my witness, to talk about the earth that she articulates in the book, and also to talk about the act of witnessing that is very, very, pertinent to her poetry. So Tansy, I welcome you, and I invite you to, throw light on these.
Thank you so much. What a lovely introduction, Vasudhara. And yes, with Earth as my witness is importantly, I would say my humble attempt to bear witness to what I have experienced, I would say to a greater extent in the last couple of years since I wrote my first book, also published by Red River. Thank you, Dibyajyoti ji. And I felt as soon as I'd finished that first one, as soon as we'd launched it and all the kind of adrenaline and rush of publishing a first book was over, I found myself writing like I'd never written before. As I often say to people, the first book took about 27 years to write and the second one took about 3 months. So, there was a really huge momentum after I'd finished writing and launching it. I guess it was more the process of actually publishing it and bringing it into the world was extremely euphoric and motivating, a little bit like having a baby, actually, the same kind of rush of adrenaline after the first baby is born. So that prompted what I thought would be the second collection. And I sent it to Dibya and he was like, hum ha, it feels like a little bit like 2 different books. It doesn't really feel like one. And as I read through and edited and took things out and put things back in and, did that whole crazy edit process, I was just feeling more and more like, yeah, I do want to write something ecological. I want to write about the earth and I want to write about the things that are shocking me and also those moments of beauty that I'm still finding even in the most unlikely places. So where I'm based for much of the time is a campus in Haryana. And that campus, in the 8 years that I've been here, is gradually being encroached upon by more and more and more development and building. And yeah, the kind of usual township scene in India, whereby there are just like concrete blocks going up all around our eyes, wherever we happen to live, actually, unless it's in remote Zanskar, and even there it's still getting developed. So there's this sort of mad, crazy rush of construction all around us all the time. And at the same time, there were these like magical moments on the campus where I would just sit under a tree, or I would feel that, you know, even these little tiny sunbirds who are building a nest are so magical, and they're so brilliant at getting on with their work in spite of all the crazy times around us going on. So I kept on wanting to record those details. And the more I recorded, and the more it became a sort of ecological poetry collection. I was a bit nervous about that, because I was thinking so many people are writing eco poetry right now. Do I dare join the great and the good who are publishing such wonderful books? And I put this question to a novelist, actually, and she said, you know what, it's a really big room. It's a really big room. Just write, and write whatever you have to. And that comforted me and encouraged me that, yes, it's a big earth and it's a big room, and there's a lot to witness right now. So I continued, I persevered, and during the writing, quite near the end of the writing, when the manuscript seemed to be coming to some sort of fruition or some sort of shape, I visited Bodh Gaya. Sorry about my camera, it's just got a life of its own. And as I was in Bodh Gaya, I had that kind of period of grace where I could go to the temple and I could sit under the Bodhi tree and you know, just experience life in this particular place. And I'd already decided on the title, I decided to emphasize this gesture that the Buddha had when he was facing the demons, when he was facing Mara. And I'd wanted to talk about that. I'd wanted to just share that experience of putting one's hand on the earth and saying, this is what the earth is witnessing, and this is what I'm witnessing. And without wanting to feel in any way hubristic or compare the experiences of a great enlightened one and a very humble human being, I also wanted to emphasize the point that the earth itself is a witness to everything that is happening in our times, and, you know, how much she suffers, how much she has to bear in terms of, you know, piles and piles of concrete, mountains of trash and ash, all of the things that we are creating as a species and that are impacting on our time on Earth. I think that was the main reason to bring attention to the act of witnessing, and also to the feeling that Earth herself is witnessing an awful lot right now during our time. So I hope that answers in long form. And I hope that I can get a camera back at some point. I'm so sorry if it's just going to be an audio.
Thank you, thank you. So this was Tansy Troy, whom we just heard. She's an India-based poet, educator, performer, and artist who grew up in the heart of London's Covent Garden before traveling to Morocco, Wales, and the Himalayas, stopping off at Cambridge University to complete a master's degree in English literature at King's College. Since then, Tansy's creative quest has led her to schools, galleries, theatres, and concert halls across England and Wales, France, and India, where she writes and performs plays, songs, and musical stories with the young people in her audience. So you just heard Tansy and her wonderful journey that crystallized in this very special book she has just brought into the world. Thank you, Tansy. We'll come back to you certainly. And from Tansy, we move over to, or from With Earth as My Business, we move over to our second book for the evening, which is called This Could Be a Love Poem for You by Ranu Uniyal. And such special book it is. And the title, I love the title so much. This could be a love poem for you, and something that is and yet is not, something that one is not certain of. And what exactly, Ranu, would you have to say about this very special book that is literally, I find it an ode to grief, to mourning, and also to the acceptance of the tranquility behind it? How would you place this book in the context of all your other books, of the body of your writing in general? Over to you.
Uh, I wish I could express myself because, uh, you see, I'm a very slow writer. And I often ask, like when you asked me earlier, you told me that I should speak about how this book came into existence. Has there been a time in my life when I have not picked up a pen? It has been my ally all these years. And being a slow writer, my first book came out in 2006. And it took me nearly 20 years, of reading, writing, publishing. And it took a long time. The first one was published by Yeti Books. Rajivan Thachampoil was the editor of that book, and it came out from Calicut. Then another 6 years, and then another 6 years, 2006, and then 12, and then 18. And then this book has come out in 2025. Over the years, I think poetry is all about life. For me, it is about the process of growing up. And as a woman, I'm reminded of Mary Oliver, who once said that I believe in kindness and also in mischief. So there are these multiple selves in me. And thanks to my son, he has, the child in me is still alive and still kicking. I love to play with words, and words tend to surprise me. I pay attention also to those who cannot verbalize their emotions and their feelings. And, as you get older, you confront many questions which are linked with life. That is, you confront, you face the death of your loved ones. You see your own friends leaving this body. And suddenly, this did not happen when I was studying at Hull University, or when I was doing my MPhil at JNU. We were all alive and vibrant. And now, gradually, with the passing of years, you become conscious of the loss. And grieving becomes something which is which you cannot escape. And this particular book, you are quite right, it is about mourning, it is about loss, but it is also about learning to overcome all these things, because as you get older, you begin to realize that your existence itself is transitory on this earth. And the minute you realize that the body itself is mortal, and you are here as a guest, it fills you with a sense of gratitude that yes, you are alive. Post corona, this was the thought that I was filled with. I said, oh, thank God I'm alive, because I had seen many people very close to me not wanting to leave, and perhaps had a lot more to offer to this earth, but they left this world. So once you become that consciousness of the temporality of your own existence and the consciousness of your own being, you realize how small a being you are on this earth. How are you different from a fly or a mosquito, or just that wave, that lap of water? It's this consciousness, I think, that is there in this book. And as I have faced life, and I have faced various odds in life, which we all do, and we learn to cope with those odds in our own simple way. That slowness in me, that thing, that it takes a while to let those, ideas sink in. And I think that those emotions inside me are those, those emotions have compelled me to pick up my pen, and things which I could not have shared, which I was unable to share otherwise. And maybe some certain emotions, certain experiences are very, very intimate. And for a writer, the best way to get rid of those, to express those emotions. The best way to get rid of that grief is to express it on paper. So that's how this book came about. And when I said that, I'm also attracted to those who cannot verbalize, who cannot express themselves. So to be able to enter that world also, I see that as a blessing, Basudhara. Yeah.
Very true, very true. To be able to articulate at a time when so many people do not have the privilege to be able to do this. Yes, and also I find that these poems are probably also shaped by the loss of your mother, who was not just a mother to you, but also a grandmother to your son, and the kind of care and nurture that she had offered. I think
Yes.
many of these poems flow from that particular loss and that vacuum within.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And we will come back to this beautiful book. So this was Ranu Uniyal, who is professor and former head, Department of English, University of Lucknow. She was a Commonwealth Scholar at the University of Hull, UK, an author editor of 10 books. Her articles and book reviews have been widely published. Uh, Her poems particularly have appeared in Turning Pages, Germany, Asia Literary Review, Hong Kong, Words and Worlds, Austria, Ethos Literary Journal, Muse India, Kavya Bharati, Indian Literature, Madras Courier, and where not. These particular poems, which appear in this special book, will find their own, beautiful ways into the world. And we'll come back to this book. Thank you so much, Ranu ma'am. And with this, we move to the third book for us this evening, and that is Mallika Bhaumik's very special When Time is a Magic Jar. Mallika, I think this is your debut collection. And is this? No? All right. So this is your second book of poems in the world?
Basudhara, good evening, everyone. This is the third book of poems.
Third book of poems.
Third book of poems.
And it is very, very, the title itself is very, enticing, When Time is a Magic Jar. But most of the sections I find, while you talk about magic, and there is epiphany in many of these poems at certain points of time, the epiphany comes in. But this also, is a book about mourning and about loss and about the plurality of loss, how we are losing all the while. And another thing that drew me to the book is, it has the spirit of Calcutta in it. It's very close.
Yes, very much so.
And the city is a very important trope in many of these poems. I would like you to talk about this book and also, how the city of Calcutta shapes your muse. So over to you, Mallika.
Thank you. This is the book. And I'm grateful to Dibbajyoti Sharma and Red River for bringing it out. This is my third book of poems, and 5 years after the second book. For 5 years I was not sure if I would like to bring out a book or not. I was lazy. I was not writing so much, and COVID came, so that really changed the world for many of us. But then the death of my father, who passed away very suddenly, I lost him in 2022, January. So that sort of, I cannot say what it is. The writing itself is very cathartic, as you would all agree. We are all writers and poets here. It is a cathartic exercise. So somehow this death triggered me towards poetry, more and more towards writing my heart out, grieving through words. So many poems are confessional, many are very, very personal poems about parents, about the fear of loss, about losing, and how I was coping with the loss. My mother, my sister, those were the close-knit, we are a very close-knit family. So how we were doing, that also is one topic of many of the poems. So this is a very emotional journey for me, bringing out the loss, making it, channelizing my own personal sorrow into poetry. And yes, Vasudhara, that's another thing is that the city is also my muse, among many other people and things. The city forms a very large part of my poetry poems. In many poems, the city is described. Sometimes I've seen it as a prostitute who has passed her prime and cannot lure young men. Men are abandoning her. Sometimes the rain-washed city appears as a singing minstrel, singing songs of nostalgia, of memories. And sometimes the city is a stifling place for a lover who has lost his love and he doesn't want to stay in the city. So the city and its mirrored images form a collage in my poetry in different ways. Yeah,
Yes, and
it is a
sometimes the city is also an apsara. I love that
Yes,
description.
my
Very
city is
much.
an apsara. Yes, in the poem New Year. Yes, true. So the city, I have loved it, hated it. I have lived it here, and it is a very special place. It has a special character. For me, it has a very special character. Calcutta has a very special character. Calcutta, or what we now call Kolkata, and its chaotic roads and pavements, dusty roads, parks, eateries, everything. The part of the whole thing is poetry for me. So yes, and it is my muse also.
Thank you, Mallika. Yes, I loved the way that Calcutta appears in her various shades, and also that kind of relationship that emerges. The love and hate, the angst and
Yes.
anxiety, and also the need to escape the city. All of these come in together, and that's a beautiful experience. Thank you. We'll come back to you. Uh, Moving to our fourth book for the evening, we have Shruti Kulkarni's very, very beautiful debut collection, Ode to Broken Things. And Shruti, first of all, congratulations for your first book, because the first will always be the closest that anything can ever be. But most importantly, also, for coming up with poems like this at a time like this. Now, why I say, because most of us have been talking about grieving and about pain, whereas in most of your poems, I find that the spirit, is very, very strong and upbeat. So, what I have been admiring throughout this collection is the resilience of the collection, the spirit, the determination to see, everything good. And one of the poems that moved me very much is the OCD poem, OCD in the Gym, and the conclusion where everything becomes for you a way to contain and control your thoughts. So these are very hopeful poems at a time where we are shrouded and overcome by a lot of negativity, by a lot of pessimism. There's a tendency to lose hope. How does this idea or this strength kind of, where does it come from? How does it enter into your poetry? And what kind of thoughts went into the conception of this very beautiful first book? Please tell us about it.
Thank you, Basudhara, for your kind words. And also thank you so much to Divya and Red River. I mean, this is my first book, so very, very special and close to my heart. I think I got to this point, and in the background, there has been a lot of grief and loss and suffering, and somewhere traveling through all of that and experiencing all of those emotions, I got to a point where I was like, enough, how do I, make sense of this world with looking at the world with a very different lens, so to say. And I'd been writing for a few years and in different spaces. When I was younger, I had these diaries, and then I was posting poets on these portals that were new, back when the internet was new. And then, of course, the blogger came and I was posting there. And I think this book came into existence, to put it very simply, is because of some of my dear friends who said, just get off your bottom and just do something with your poems. So that's how it started. But I think when I started putting this manuscript together, there was a lot going on in terms of the chaos that was there, in terms of the geopolitical mess that we're finding ourselves in, the environmental degradation. So just hearing about all of this and watching some of this unfolding, like I think Tansy also mentioned that, in your background, in the cities where you've grown up, and a lot of things that you're so close to are being replaced by things that you don't understand, these concrete structures. So there was that sense of loss and grief. And also, I was beginning to have a lot of conversations about these things with my friends, and I realized that there was struggle, there was suffering, which to one degree was individual but also collective. And in all of that, all of this chaos, I think for me, I was trying to find some meaning, a sense of belongingness, a sense of connectedness. And through these poems, connecting with all the elements that exist in terms of small hidden beings, I started to find a roadmap to return home, so to say, and to return to myself. And my hope was, if I am able to, do this for some people who would read my poems, to find some degree of hope, some moments of calm reading my poems, I think that would really, my job would be done. And also to see if these poems could also become, conversation starters, to bring about some small change, maybe. So not ambitious, but hopeful, certainly. And also one question I think that I've been thinking about, I read somewhere where I think there was a medical doctor who said that it's not enough to ask ourselves what kind of parents or grandparents will we be, but the pertinent question is what kind of ancestors will we be? Um, so, if I think about that, and if I think that if my poems could offer that space of kindness, a sort of meditative space to connect with that sense of stillness within, is something that I think I worked towards when I was putting these poems together.
Right. How lovely, to examine this, to examine oneself from this perspective, what kind of ancestors we will be, and also, to address these questions in the best way that we can. So I also, in the charm of Mallika's
Basudara, you're not audible.
Did I miss something? We do.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes, is this better now?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So I was just saying that I missed introducing Mallika also. And so once I introduce Shruti, I must go back and introduce Mallika formally, though, of course, who does not know Mallika? So Shruti Kulkarni is an independent filmmaker and photographer. Her poems and artworks have appeared in the anthologies Through the Looking Glass and 100 Poems Are Not Enough. She also works as a film consultant, writer, and podcast producer with the World Bank and other organizations involved in the field of environment and development. Having grown up in Dehradun, she mostly enjoys taking long walks in the quiet wilderness. And of course, this is very much visible from the lovely poems that have appeared in this particular book, which I hope many of you will be reading. I must go back and introduce Mallika Bhaumik, who just spoke about the city of Calcutta and how it is, it is very significant to her muse. So Mallika Bhaumik was a nominee for the Pushcart Prize for Poetry in 2019. Her poems are part of the postgraduate syllabus of the English department of the BBM University Dhanbad. She lives and writes from Kolkata, and her interviews, essays, articles, poetry, short stories, travel logs have appeared in various journals like the Punch magazine, Madras Courier, Outlook India, the Dhaka Tribune, and so on. So with this, we have, set our evening and we have set our hearts on these 4 poetry collections that we are going to very shortly hear the poets read from. So without further ado, I would invite Tansy to read her favorite poems from her latest collection. Tansy, over to you.
Thank you so much, Basudra. Are we not going to hear something about the background to A Blur of a Woman first? Would you like to tell us how that came about, please?
All right. So yes, I totally forgot about this. I do have a book here, and this is very special to be here on a panel where my own book also comes in. So A Blur of a Woman is my second book with Red River and my 4th book as such in the world. And I think the title says it all. It's talking about the identity, the existence, the existentiality of women as a blur. Now, a blur is something that is indistinct. A blur is something where the outlines are not very clear, but a blur also in its own way stands its ground and defies definitions. That is for me a very important, point to stress on, to defy definition, to say that something is not this and is not this. So what then is it? So I think the very joy and the very user of womanhood would lie in this defying definitions, because we have been defined for too long, and we have mostly been defined according to norms that we do not appreciate. So A Blur of a Woman is partly about this. It is partly also about the multiple roles that women play in their everyday lives, the kind of selves that they must break into and split into in order to address so many things around them. Blur is also about the essential fact of being a woman, the vulnerability of being a woman in a man's world, the vulnerability of being a woman inside your own body, because you have, your body shapes you in physical, psychological, and also in ideological ways. So how do you embrace, or how do you retaliate against these ideologies? So it is also about learning to find your own body, and not, any typical woman's body. So to be comfortable in your own skin. My last book with Red River, which was my second book, was called Stitching a Home. And I think I was more concerned about the physical and emotional idea of a home. But in Blur of a Woman, I think I'm going deeper, and I'm talking about, the body as home and the mind as home. So it is a kind of minimalism. You forget, the world ceases to matter to you, and you are, either you are at home in yourself or you're homeless within yourself. So I think there's a kind of relation also, there's a kind of thread also that continues. Yes, so much for Blur. Thank you, Tansy, for that question. And now I think we are very eager to hear you read. Please read from, Earth as Witness.
Thank you. That was so fascinating to hear you talk about it. And it just made me think suddenly that yesterday I was taking some notes for potential new poems, and I just did that thing where you open the Oxford English Dictionary and just see how many words you don't know in it. And I discovered that literally nearly every contributor to that huge 2-volume tome that I have is male. So I was like, hooray, we're using words written and defined by men. How can I escape this? So anyway, that gives me hope that, our non-definability can be redefined by our blur. So thank you very much, Vasudha. And without further ado, I'm going to try and read with or without a camera. First and foremost, I think I'm going to read a poem that I wrote as a tribute to my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law is from Zanskar, from the remote region near to Ladakh, and she was an incredibly traditional and beautiful lady who had lived her life at high altitude, looking after the animals, looking after the fields, and being about as close to the earth as any human being that I've known. So when she passed, although it felt very sad and it was a huge shock to the whole family, she had been suffering from a year of dementia, and it was as if she had left her earth already before she passed. Part of that I felt was due to a lot of transit between Zanskar and Manali, where we have our home. And this kind of disorientation of travel meant that she wasn't really in herself anymore. So when she left the body, I felt she had returned to earth, and this is my tribute to her. No need to light 1,000 butter lamps. I am already lit. Passed so swiftly from this shell, hard worked until my bones and limbs and mind were numb and outworn. The heated brick I sat on for relief, the wooden pillow where I rested my head, all these hard comforts gone cold now. Elated to be at last released from under the weight of turquoise crowns and heaviness of clods, free from reams of antique barley rotting in the store, no longer beholden to witless generations, no more the gatekeeper of an unacknowledged realm. I return to cobalt sky, to a wilderness of rock, to the ceaseless torrent, to the stealth of ice. My peace was only ever masked by walking stick and failing words, an unfamiliar action, released from endless wait for suns, slowly trekking home. And just to add that my husband was the youngest son and was always in London for much of her lifetime, and would trek home annually to see her again. But it was such a long walk where there was no road. It would take him about 3 weeks to get there or something. So she was always waiting, and she was always very sorrowful that he wasn't with her. So when we kind of discussed it, we just wanted to also honor her patience and her waiting for the sons to always come back to her. So the next poem I'd love to read to you all is another kind of tribute, but it's to live horses who I knew in Delhi. And these horses had formerly been polo horses, really amazing creatures, like incredibly strong and powerful and beautiful, extremely well trained. And at the end of their brilliant polo career, the owners of the stables saw fit often to just let them go and just let them wander around some rather, non-productive scrubland that was in Noida. And so luckily there was a wonderful organic farm that adopted them and that wanted them to have a better life after they'd finished. But it was so shocking that these extraordinary creatures were just allowed to sort of forage for whatever they could after this hugely successful career, making other humans powerful and famous. So I wrote something for them called Horses of the Delhi Apocalypse. When the storm has finished reeking and everything's reduced to rubble, who cares for you, sweet horses of the Delhi apocalypse? When the ogres have ceased puffing a noose of smoke around the village huts, squeezing life out of myriad lungs, and the sun's a sullen apology, a rupee lost on the forsaken sky of street. Who will love and groom you then, feed you succulents? Every forageable leaf is encased in shrouded dust, grey mud. Damned and stinking Yamuna thick with whitish scurf and scum. Not a single vulture left to pick clean your starved bones, jackals barely visible amongst the detritus. For now, you survive, witnesses to Holocaust. When you're gone, may your proud ghosts bite, pouring the earth, impoverished dirt, back to fierce life. So it was this kind of ferocity and fierceness of the horses that I wanted to bring out in that poem, that they're still proud, however hard their lives are. And it really, you know, feel very blessed to have met such amazing animals in the city, in the metropolis. But moving from the city back up to my real home in the mountains, we have an amazing mother tree, and her roots connect to many, many other trees in the forest. She's a giant old cedar, and she has like 5 trunks. And we always go and we listen with our ears to her trunk, and we ask our questions for the new year. And the villagers get a bit cross because they're like, no, she's so sacred. You mustn't touch her. You mustn't put your ear next to her trunk. She's too amazing. She's too special. But we do anyway. And the mother tree often answers questions, and she's so powerful, and she's so beautiful and life affirming and life giving. So this is my very, very short poem in honor of the mother tree. I have felt your skin on mine since the very birth of time. We have bruised our lips in kiss from the first primordial bliss. Do not say this cannot be when it's happening to you, when it's happening to us, when it's happening to me. And if you really cannot see, just go ask the mother tree. Thank you so much, Vasudha. That was lovely and really fun.
Such beautiful poems, and I think very justly chosen. They reflect the diversity of the book and the various shades and moods, the turns that poetry takes. So from horses and memories and trees, a very, very brief but a very potent snapshot of what this beautiful book contains. Thank you so much, Tansy. And from Tansy, we move over to Ranu Uniyal, and I would invite Ranu ma'am to read a few poems from this very special book of hers. This could be a love poem for you. Over to you.
Thank you, Vasudha. You see, I agree with what Shruti just said, that we are all trying to make sense of the world that we live in. And as I said earlier also, this particular book is certainly about mourning, grief, and loss. You see, I was very close to my mother. And after she left, I was filled with a sense of emptiness. And for many nights, I grappled with that vacuum as if the ocean inside me had dried up. And I was left only with dry twigs to hold on to. Grief is a cloak, and once you hold on to it, it clings, it saps you inside out. But then eventually you have to get up, you have to stand up and accept the inevitability of death and move on and accept life. So this particular poem, was written soon after she died. I lost her on 8th of November 2022. And the title of the poem is Grief. Pour it on paper, it becomes an elegy. Share it with your bed, it becomes yours forever. Walk with it in solitude, it starts talking. Crush it with a favorite memory, it begins to smell. Keep it inside you, it weighs you down. Slap it with anguish, it kills you. On all bad days, it insists, I'm here to stay. And good days dread the coming of it again. So as a poet and as someone who is constantly interacting with young women, you see, and whatever is happening around you, you cannot remain impervious to the society that you live in. And we often talk in terms of equality, we talk of justice and the rights for women, equal rights, justice, fraternity, and whatnot, you know. But then we keep hearing from people that, yes, women are now empowered and are very strong. And then you see suddenly something happens and it shakes you to the core. And then you realize, oh, we are worse than animals. So this, the second poem that I'm going to read is, the title of this poem is Be a Good Girl. All girls are asked to be good. Be a good girl. Good girls stay away from the streets. Stray not in the dark. Sleep early. Good girls don't drink in the open. Good girls don't have boyfriends or wear short cut sleeves, dresses that cling. Good girls don't smoke or read porn. Good girls refrain from laughing and oogling. Good girls do their homework. Good girls eat dinner at home. Good girls sleep in their bedroom, switch off their TV and mobiles at 10. Wish you a good night long before midnight. Good girls say their prayers. Be a good girl. Good girls get soaked in blood in their sleep. No one knows why. Good girls fail to wake up in the morning. No one knows why. Good girls get killed inside their bedroom. No one knows why. Good girls die and no one hears them scream, shout, or cry. Good girls are found buried in the forests. Good girls are hanged, dumped, shot, ripped apart with a knife. Good girls get raped, butchered. No one knows why. And yet they say, be a good girl.
Very powerful, very powerful.
You see, to accept one, it is very important for us to accept the fact that we are all vulnerable. And to accept the other as one's own self is equally important. So as we take a walk through this journey called life, as a woman, I find myself going through various experiences as a teacher, a daughter, a mother, and that role of a mother has been very important. We hear various stories of motherhood, how mothering is something which is to be cherished. And in Sanskrit, they say, Kuputro jayata kvachidapi kumata na bhavati. But there have been good mothers and bad mothers, and there has been too much of valorizing of motherhood. And there is also devaluation of the woman's womb as well. As a mother, this particular poem, the title of it is Holding On. And I dedicate this to my son, who is who's a blessing to me. Holding on. I have you gaping with mouth wide shut, your glasses indifferent to the glare. I follow you. I have words searing my ears to tongue I wish there was little to spout. I have the drop of rain that lies frozen in a sea of fire. Despite the storm, I prefer quiet. I have you still in my arms. Anaphylaxis, they say. Unfettered. I know your heart beats inside me. I have you, my little sparrow, chirping in the twilight. This beauty is enough to keep me sane. I have you as my last morsel, hungry but content, I pick you at leisure. I have you as my only shroud in full view, and I am left without a cover. I have you as my heir, bent with the burden of my damaged psyche, full of kindness. I have you in me. Imperfect rhythms, whispers swell inside the belly. We dance together. Thank you.
Very, very beautiful, and so much love to Mukund, who
Thank you.
has constantly been the loveliest muse of your life, I would say. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And next, I would like to invite Mallika Bhaumik to read her poems from When Time is a Magic Jar. The book is very magnificently divided into a number of sections, and I was as much drawn to the section titles as to the poems themselves. So I don't know what poems Mallika is choosing, but the billboard section intrigued me very much. I hope maybe there will be a poem from that section too. Over to you, Mallika.
Thank you, Basudhara. First, I'll read the eponymous poem, When Time is a Magic Jar. This poem was written with my father in mind. When he had a lot of influence on me. You can say I had always been a daddy's girl, and he inculcated in me the love for literature, the habit to read books, good books, introduced me to good movies. So, like, I often used to see him in the later years sitting in the balcony, lost in reverie. And whenever we used to ask him, "What are you thinking?" He was a man of few words. Then he would say, "I was thinking of the old times, how I used to be with my friends." Maybe when at a certain age, I mean, people like to, walk down the memory lane and relive their boyhood days or their girlhood days. So here is the poem. A time comes out of the trunk like the winter shawl, smelling of naphthalene, worn out, yet keeping you warm. An old friend with whom you share steaming cups of tea on misty winter mornings. There are so many unworded stories you tell. The foolish things you did as a child, how you laughed and laughed, letting sun rays doodle on your skin, your hair ruffled by the wayward wind, a familiar voice calling you back home, possibly your mother's. A time so long ago that it can go missing by the bend of the road, and no one will ever know of it. It was never meant to become part of a history book. Such a time, just as ordinary as the street tap water running by the pavement wall. The easy chair of your balcony watches it day long. Yet, for you, it's a pretty glass jar, magic filled, opening its lid, carrying you there, where your ailing bones turn agile, the truant feet dart along the aisle of paddy fields. You bend down to pick up fallen raw mangoes after the tumult of Kalboishaki. The moss-laden walls, the narrow lanes, the damp smell, the cracked window panes, the wooden benches of your Zilla school return to your eyes with the luminosity of the northern lights. It is that time that makes you cry. You wish to ditch your crippled old shadow, the easy chair, the patient friendship of the old shawl, and rush back to chase the fireflies. So this is the one, and I would thank you. I would like to read the last poem. I am a movie buff also, and I was greatly impressed or influenced after watching the movie In the Mood for Love by the maverick filmmaker Wong Kar-wai. So after watching that, when I start, nothing happened after I watched that. I liked it very much and everything. But when I started to compose a love poem, I found myself recreating the scenes of that movie through my words. So here is the poem. And curiously enough, the book starts with the poem closure and ends with the poem beginning. So this is the last poem of the book, beginning. My eyes catch splashes of colors, flame orange, mustard, cherry red, birthing dreams in the narrow alley as we cross each other. You inhale my lemongrass skin, I your smoky shirt. We smile hesitantly like autumn drizzle in dusky evenings. Fleeting moments submerging and resurfing. We wait for words. My body is your imagined landscape, an undulating topography where wildflowers bloom. You carry my scent in the taxi, elevator, cafe, office corridor, my nape, shoulders, arms, breasts bear the whiff of your burned cigarette. The musk of your bodies engage in tantalizing choreographed foreplay, while our shy smiles greet each other. We wait to touch. The soup bowls come, piping hot. We sip spoonful of stories, losing our centripetal density, inching towards a hazy periphery, diffusing like fragrance in some prayer hall. Our sad, sad envelopes of words remain open. The bleeding heart is a crushed pomegranate sliding down the throat, till the rib cage becomes an empty nest, words flying out to rest in the hollowness of a ruin, a lingering tale of love, melting into timelessness. We wait for a beginning. Now, as Vasudhara wants me to read from this section, City Billboard and an Origami Bird. Yes, from this section, this is, I will read Journey of a Vowel. Now, this is like remnant of a dream, snatches and fragments of the dream, which I tried to recollect in the morning and then write. It took some days, of course. And this journey of a vowel is, the vowel is O, as you will see. A vowel sinks into the quicksand of time, emerging as a fruit, an orange. You think of marmalade. Your tongue circles the curvature of the night to taste it. The rhythm of our breath, the quest for tangibles to reach a place that shimmers like a mirage, makes cities and civilizations melt in our mouth. An obelisk stands tall, piercing the passion of the flesh, bridging the carnal with the eternal. An origami bird flies away with a fairy tale in its beak. The swishing sound of an omen traverses a dusty road. You and I rush past each other through narrow alleys that do not take us anywhere. Days and years ride on a Ferris wheel. The ornate mirror in our room trembles with the tale of love and betrayal. A cartload of wishes reduces to a fragment of dreams, slipping through our fingers like water. Night is an oval locket of lapis lazuli. Its color pales with the first tinge of orange on the eastern horizon. A vowel transforms into a hue, birthing another day. So these are the 3 poems. Thank you for giving me the time to read these 3 poems to you all. I hope you have enjoyed them.
Thank you for your very, very beautiful poems. Thank you so much. And we're very excited to hear Shruti now. Shruti, since your poems, many of your poems are very small, if you're going in for smaller poems, you need not limit yourself to 3. And we are very eager. And I hope the OCD poem will be one of the poems that you plan to read this evening. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vasudhara. I really enjoyed listening to all the other poems very much. I'll start with a very short poem. It's called Freedom. And the idea was whenever there's been some iron hand trying to suppress voices, the voice, people who we think are voiceless are actually not voiceless. So to kind of celebrate that spirit, it's called Freedom. They cast an iron sky over our cities. They hoped for us to quietly rust. Our voices stronger, louder, more together. Firecrackers of freedom, burning through it, bringing it down. I'll move on to the next poem, which is I am you, you are me. And I think the thought behind this poem was that our stories are all similar, our struggles are all similar, and there's a common thread of sorrows and celebrations that connect us all. So when I'm looking at myself, I'm also looking at you. And when you're looking at me, you're kind of looking at me, we're mirroring each other in some ways. Sometimes I do not know who I am beyond the graying hair and the same dark, then bright, now dull eyes that have been looking back at me in the mirror, asking the same old questions and tracing the trajectory of my half life. Youthful face, now weathered, giving me a stern look, wondering what I did with the 40 years I was graciously given. And I know that now because across the world, some mothers weren't given 4 months with their babies, and fathers for years with their daughters who will not grow up to be beautiful women of grace, courage, and nurturance. Such transient becoming and unbecoming of sweet children's little lives. But this poem is not about conflicts, tragedy, or even death. It's a gentle reckoning of seeing each other and being seen. So here I am, looking at you, looking at myself, your hands full of paint and yet an empty canvas. I am that artist who fears stark blank white. I let judgment of that what has not yet birthed abort its birthing. Such a tragic death of what? Of that which is not born. I see myself in you. Your mind full of plans, routes, and tea house treks, and yet your maps, all folded, tucked away neatly, still smelling of fresh ink, green of the forests, brown of the barrens, blue of the rivers, and not of spilt coffee, scent of strangers' hands, who may have borrowed your map, and sometimes also shared journeys. How nice it would be to instead to have old unused maps, traying at the edges with site notes on the margins, phone numbers, addresses, scribbled at the back, and sometimes invisible stories of indefinite journeys. Indeed, I am that traveler who is yet to set sail. And you, lover, your heart full of desire to make those calls, to write those love poems, and yet, on the very delicate terrain of acceptance and rejection, you traverse boldly with your unbridled love and longing, the impulse to write, and that holding back to not. Your love's folding and unfolding like a Janimaz, a ritual in which you live and die 1,000 lives. Your desire bears witness to winning on some days, and on others, laying on the pyre of absolute defeat, still burnishing your love for your beloved. I see you too, defeated and finding solace in a warm cup of tea, to make up for the absence of your beloved's embrace. And you, I see myself in you. You're not the one to give up. You try and you try, even when the body doesn't cooperate. And your mind feels so shut like a curled up pangolin under attack. I see myself in you too, and then I remember all of our collective stories, how far we've all come, loving, failing, tired, and celebrating, and waking up each day, trying to make it the best one so far. And I fall in love with each one of you all over again. And in doing that, I fall in love with myself too. Thank you. Let me see if I can find the OCD poem. This is for Basudara. This is also one of my favorites. So yeah, I think this was when I was going to the gym, and I would always do these things when people would work out and I'd be arranging things. And this is how it started. It's called OCD at the gym. I always get this right at the gym. A 5 kilo kettlebell in the 5 kilo rack, 7.5 kilo dumbbells in the 7.5. Barbells perfectly horizontal, cones and pylons find their perfect place too. CrossFit, bench press, deadlift, P2B, OCD. As I arrange these weights, I organize my scattered thoughts. Each kettlebell stored well is a rogue thought contained, ragged in order Each barbell is an emotion put in its rightful place. Going to the gym also turns the junkyard of my thoughts into a manicured Mughal garden. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shruti. Very, very beautiful poems.
Thank
And
you.
we wish your debut collection all the very best. It's very special, and we hope it reaches more hearts. Thank you so much. And with this, I think we come to the conclusion of a very beautiful session. But yes, I know there's Tansy giving me a reminder. Yeah.
Yes, you don't get away that easily, Vasundhara. No way. So I wanted to ask you before we leave this wonderful gathering of beautiful people, how does Shringara permeate your life, Vasundhara? How does it permeate the life of your poems? Because I found the conversation that I love best between your book and mine was this lovely kind of romance, this delight in the Lalita poem. Lalita Speaks. I loved how she was just so sensuous and so in love with being in love, and just had this kind of beautiful dancing exuberance. And I really wanted to know how much this jouissance plays a part in your life and in your poems, and if you can help us to access it as poets, where do you find it?
So yes, thank you, Tansy. So there's this poem that Tansy is talking about, which is called Lalita Speaks, and this was written for this was written for for a magazine whose call was, they were querying the idea. So it was a queer issue. And I was querying the idea of the Ras Leela. So whereas the Ras Leela is supposed to be the kind of gathering where women are all gathering around Krishna, I made it, I turned it over into a kind of gathering where the women are all gathering around each other. So it's a women's gathering. And Krishna is aware that he's the linchpin. He's brought them together. And he's very happy at having brought them together. So yes, I think this sisterhood is an idea that attracts me very deeply. And the idea of Shringar also, is deeply associated with the idea of being a woman. So it is not about Shringar is in one way, it's just not about the physical or the perceptual fact of beauty. It is about the psychological fact of beauty, the idea of feeling beautiful. And the idea of feeling beautiful, is it's that idea of wholeness. You feel whole, you feel complete. So everything that you have, I mean, the sense of being enough, the sense of, having everything that you want at your disposal. It also translates for me into a kind of, you call it spiritual, but it's a kind of enrichment. You feel wealthy, you don't feel deprived. So when you are able to access that kind of feeling, I believe that, so it's a way where you are in harmony with yourself, and then it's easier to love. Once in that frame of mind, it's easier to love. It's easier to, when it becomes very easy to love yourself, it becomes very easy to love another one. And that kind of, that kind of reciprocity in love can only be given by two souls who love themselves. They can love one another only after, you have performed the basic task of loving yourself. And on that note, would you like me to read Lalita Speaks?
Yes,
please. Lovely poem. Yes, please.
Yes, so I think,
or any other romantic poem, any other romantic poem that you like.
When I was writing Blur, I do have a lot of love poems, but when I was putting Blur together, one decision was I would not have a love poem in Blur. I don't know why. But Lalita Speaks was, it made its way. I felt it was a part of Blur. But there were otherwise, I have poems on Radha, and which I did not include here because I somehow thought it would be out of sorts with the spirit of the book. So, all right, Lalita Speaks, which is very close to me. Mostly it wasn't about him. Though, yes, we did need that magic cowherd in our midst. No one will disagree he was a heartthrob. We swooned over his pearl teeth, his tree bark skin. But it was chiefly his flute that did us in. If you believe music strips the soul, know that his notes undressed us, till our scarves, grudges, obligations were all blown away. That's how he stole our clothes, our butter bowls, ceaselessly inviting us to play. And we went, all of us Sakis, Vishakha, Chitra, Indulekha. He knew we held each other's hearts in sway, trembled like waves in the other's embrace, radiant in Shringar as we interlocked sandal-rubbed arms to dance around his halo at the center. It seldom escaped Govind's eyes that our attention lay at our partnered sides. How else could he explain conjugal bliss in each of his 16,000 wives? The village thought our ecstasy came from him. We played along. Between whining children, jealous sisters-in-law, and disinterested husbands, this hour alone was ours. Surfeit with freedom, limbs supple like vines, we danced, thrilled to be the love was recklessly returned. In those moments, they say, we became Krishna. Well, we became Radha too. In love's river, it is difficult to say who is who. After the cowherd left, we sang by the Yamuna, oiled, bathed, pleated Rajnigandhas into each other's hair, our hearts blooming like lotuses. They have many stories about us, but Krishna alone knew our soul script, our breath. Some men, you see, are not afraid. Thank you. And
I'm so glad we could end on a romantic note. That was so heartwarming and luscious and delicious. Thank you so much, Vasudha. Thank you for hosting.
thank you. And we also have a lovely audience. And is there anybody in the audience who would like to put forward a question, an observation for any of our poets who have read this evening? You are welcome. If you'd like to contribute in any way, would like to talk about what you have felt this evening, most welcome. And I think I will invite our dear Shabnam, whom I see on the screen at this moment, and who has been patiently listening and also giving us beautiful comments. Shabnam, yes, what do you feel? Shabnam, you're not audible. Anybody else also, while Shabnam is trying to connect? If anybody else would like to say something, you're most welcome. Ranu ma'am, yes, certainly, please.
Basudra, I just wanted to thank my high school teacher. She was my class teacher, Sister Marisa. She was at the convent, and then she moved on.
She was here.
Yes, she is here. Sister Marisa is here, and I really wanted to thank her for being here. It's a very, very special day for me. The very fact that she's attending this, it's really lovely. Yes. I'm grateful to her. Sister Marisa is here. So I just wanted to convey my thanks to her.
Sister Marisa, thank you so much for being here. And it means such a lot that,
yes, it does.
One taught you the basic skills in language, who shaped you into a poet should be here. Thank you, sister, for being with us.
Thank you, sister. Yes.
Shabnam, could you connect? No. Why are you not audible? I don't even see the mic icon. If anybody else would like to say anything, I think these have been, this has been a beautiful evening where we could put together 5 books side by side. We could, make these connections between these lovely people writing and the lovely poems written. We could see horses and forests and cities and grief and so much emerge from the collective women's psyche that we have. And it was a very, very special evening to be here with you all. If there's anything that anyone would like to say on a concluding note, please feel most welcome to unmute and speak. Shabnam seems to be wanting to speak, but unfortunately, I don't know why this is not working. Divya, would you like to say something? Yes.
Not really. Thank you to the audience. We have initially we had more than 40 people joined us, and then still there are more than 23 people. So it's nice, lovely. Thank you for your efforts, and spending time with us. And congratulations to our poets. What else can I say? Well done.
Thank you. Thank
Thank you,
so much.
Dibbajyoti Sharma. You have been the rock star all along.
Sivakami ma'am, would you
you.
like to say something? Sivakami ma'am, would you like to say something? Please.
No, it was reading.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. So thank you. On that note, we come to the Amit. Amit is here. Amit, would you like to say something?
Yeah, congratulations.
Hello.
Hello.
Is it a problem at my end? Oh, yes. Now Amit is audible and visible. Yes, Amit.
Yeah, thanks. Congratulations to all the poets. And I'm guilty of Basudhara. I've been carrying her book and not reading it yet. I just wanted to have a space to read it, and for a long time I have not found that space now. But soon I'll read it. And it was an excellent session. It was very good listening to all the poets. And thanks especially to Mallika, who sent me the link. And even though I joined a bit late because someone came, and that man for Porlock always comes, but whatever, it was enjoyable. Looking forward to more such sessions.
Thank you.
I would have liked
Thank you,
even
Amit.
more, if there was one more round of reading.
Yeah, yes. We hope that we can have a session which is devoted entirely to reading very soon, one of these days. Thank you very much to everyone who has been a part of this evening. Thank you very much, especially to the wonderful poets who have been reading, who have been bringing, because it's not easy, to bring your book anywhere. I would say this before. I say that when I had children, and it was very difficult to take children everywhere. There were just certain people's houses you would take your children to. Otherwise, most places you wouldn't, because you knew that they would not feel that level of comfort. The same goes for poetry also. You cannot carry your poems and your books everywhere. So, you need special places. So it means a lot that you brought your books to the Hearth Within, and we could share this very splendid evening. For sharing your soul. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Basudhara, also for this vibrant, warm evening of poetry and discussion. Thank you, Basudhara.
Look forward to more. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Hearth Within, and thank you, Basudhara. Thank you, Divya. And it was lovely meeting all the other poets.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
The conversation continues.
Shruti.
I really hope the conversation continues. It was great.
It was great. Thank you.
Thank you so
for the
much.
recording of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will. Very soon I will put this up on YouTube, and all of us will be able to revisit it at our convenience. Thank you so much,
Brilliant.
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Good
you
night.
so much. We had so much fun. Night.
Good
Happy
night.
Valentine's. Bye.